was hitting them drums.
So you were ready. You were ready, right? Yeah, we're back for another edition of Worship and Word Conversations. This is our Saturday afternoon, our Sabbath afternoon discussion. So we want to thank you for joining us, Chris. Man, has it been 24? It hasn't been 24 hours.
Almost 23.
Okay.
No, wait. What am I talking about? Like 20? Like
Yeah, we just
about like 7:30. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. How's the last 24 been for you?
Man, it has been a restful, relaxing 24. I'm still chewing on last night's study. If you missed last night on Worship and Word, you need to go back and watch last night's session.
Well, last night I didn't say I'm still chewing on last week. As a matter of fact, I cut you off for a reason.
Yeah, I know you did.
I didn't realize we hit Mark 16 last week, which was Jesus post-resurrection.
Yeah.
And it didn't hit until after the study. I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. We just talked about Jesus pre-crucifixion last night. So it's just like the bookend was kind of interesting because we didn't talk about crucifixion and the resurrection event. We talked about what happened before and what happened at oh man, that's so cool. So I just want to throw that in there. So if y'all didn't catch last night, catch last week, then catch last night.
Or you can just catch
hit it up.
All right, just catch last night. So this afternoon's conversation, and it will be a conversation. We got some questions to ask you in light of what we studied last night, but we invite you to check in with us in the comment section. Also hit that share button because that simply lets the algorithm know this is something worth paying attention to, and it actually opens it up to more people. So Pam Horn is in the building. She got a question. So hey Chris, are you still on fire? Smoke was coming out the afro last night.
Man. Fam, I think the fire extinguisher has went ahead and mellowed me out. So we good.
We got Devontae checking in with us, and also Gerald who says what's up. So
let's get Gerald.
This conversation today, we want more. If as you're watching on whatever platform in the comment section, we love to shout you out. As you see below me, it says your comments go here, and your comments can only go here as you place them in the comment section. So we're gonna, today's gonna be intense. It's gonna be intense. We're gonna do a recap of what we talked about last night, and that's gonna dovetail into some questions that we're gonna ask relative to decision making. Because Chris, we'll do these Bible studies, or we'll listen to sermons, or we'll have like this great reflective experience, and then when it's time to actually make decisions, we get stuck.
That's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah. So we're going to spend some time this afternoon talking about, our decision-making process and some questions that you need to ask, as you see above Chris, before your next move. Whatever that next move is, whatever that major decision, it's some questions that you need to take into consideration before you make your next move. And we got Aaron checking in with us, hanging out with mom, little Aaron, Charlie, Richard, Jeremiah, nephews in the building, headed to brother's house. Yeah, headed to brother's house. Yeah, God is awesome. God is awesome. So
speaking of next move, right?
Right.
So I can frame my am I looking at it?
You looking at it. And something that we want to do, we realize that there is sometimes a difference. We know some of you watch on Friday night, you hang out with us and catch the replay. Some of you watch on Saturday afternoon or hang out and catch the replay. And we realize, man, we're missing an opportunity with our Saturday afternoon, our Sabbath afternoon audience to really jump in there and give us life updates. We do it on Friday, and it's super intense on Friday. But we didn't want to miss that opportunity to do it on today. So if you got any life updates, feel free to throw in the comment section.
Yeah, dump them right in. We definitely love to read these. We definitely love to share these. And it just happens. It encourages not just us, but other people. And then we can frame it based on the prayers that we've been praying. So it's just, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
So as we're waiting for our family and those who are hanging out to maybe throw some things in the comment section, Chris, let's do a recap. Like, I know last night was heavy. We spent close to an hour digging into the scripture, reading through, pulling those insights. For the folks who missed it or wanted to hear a part of it again, give us a recap. Frame us up for the direction that we're going this afternoon.
Yeah, so we talked about John chapter 18 last night, and it was really dealing with the multiple groups of individuals, the personas, the archetypes of people who Jesus faced and interacted with before his crucifixion. I think we talked about 7 particular groups, and I think Jesus is probably the last one, but and there are more, but we don't want to go too deep. So we did a few things. We talked about this idea of, not the idea, but the reality of the synoptic gospel. Synoptic means that you have these different approaches or perspectives to the same account, but they are stacked up on top of each other. So John's perspective is what we looked at last night. And you see Jesus a little bit more talkative in this account than perhaps in Mark, right? Where people are asking, are you the Son of God? Or are you the King of the Jews? And he's like, you say I am. And that's all he says, right? He's actually having more of a dialogue with Pilate and with Annas before meeting Caiaphas. So anyway, as we're looking at these 7 groups of individuals, we broke it down. So I'm going to look at the breakdown first. The 3 huge categories of people. The first one was the informal mob. These were the Roman troops, the temple officers, and the crowd, who was led by Judas Iscariot, Judas the betrayer. And what the informal mob does is identify and they bind the truth out of an opportunity, truth being Jesus. And we'll take a look at what that is, as Jesus says that he's the truth in John 14:6. So that's the first group, right? The informal mob who identifies, so they see it, but they squelch or try to hold it, not kill it yet, but bind it because of an opportunity. And we parallel this mob to what happened January 6th of this year, where there was a mob and they were looking for an opportunity to express themselves, to whatever. The point is, it was informal. It wasn't structured per se. Now, there were some structural things in between. And we talked about the fact that if the religious leaders were the conspirators, then the mob would have been the conspiracy theorists. And, but that's the first group. The second group was the formal religious institution. And what they did was they question and manipulate the truth out of envy. I think it's in Luke. You brought that to my attention. Luke 23, where Pilate realized that the religious leaders wanted Jesus executed because they were jealous, not the type of jealousy that God has for us, but the envy, the covetousness that they realize, man, how can he speak so and heal and do things that we are supposed to do? And we don't like that. He seems more in power or in more of a position of authority than we are. And then you call yourself God? How dare you kill this man? So there's that. So out of opportunity, out of envy. And then you have the government, right? The legislative, the judicial, the executive institution, which kills or compromises the truth out of self-preservation. It's very interesting here that in this particular account, and I say account because it's not just in John, the government is the one running things. The people are.
Yep.
And so it's out of fear for the government losing their power and their position. We need to acquiesce. We need to make sure that we got to appease both. So let's go ahead and give them somebody that they want and just call it a day. So within these 3 large groups, you have the mob, you've got religion, and you've got what would you call the third one? It's not politics, political, government, I guess, because technically I don't want to say government when but let's just go with that for now, right? So we've got these 3 sweeping categories. The people, though, that Jesus interacted with were seven groups. And the first one was the betrayer, personified in Judas. Mm-hmm. The betrayer betrays the truth. And what happens here is that Jesus reveals our cowardice, but also his power. So whenever he's interacting or in engaging with one of these groups that I'm telling you with, there's a revelation about them, which is also us, because we wear these faces when we have this encounter with Jesus, but then he reveals something about himself as well. And so he reveals our cowardice, but he also reveals his power. So we saw the foreknowledge in John, like he knew this was going to happen. We saw his authority when he says, I am he, and then they blow back and then fall down, which goes to show the demonic power that was behind these individuals trying to bind Jesus. They weren't kneeling because they didn't know who he was, like who he really was, but the fallen angels did. So when he said, I am he, my God, for him to just, for all of us to kind of back down like that, that was, that's powerful. We don't see that, but he also demonstrated healing. So, which brings us to our next one, because Peter slices the ear of one of the temple officers, and Jesus doesn't say it in John, but he says it in Luke and probably in Matthew, where he heals back the ear and says, listen, those who live by the sword is going to die by the sword. I have to drink this cup. Peter, let me do what I came here to do. And so the next group is the denier, personified in Peter. These are individuals who deny the truth. And what Jesus does here is he reveals our double-minded nature. In one instance, Peter is ready to fight, pulling out a sword, about to cut people's heads off. But then in the next instant, he's denying he's the fight and then the flight. Right now he's denying that he ever even met Jesus, or he's denying it by civilians. Not even, he's in front of Roman soldiers in one instance, he's ready to go, and in the next instant my man's just trying to warm himself up, and the little girl is like, but ain't you the one? He's like, nah, that ain't me. So this really reveals the complexity and just how I use the word duplicitous, but duplicitous means deceptive. It doesn't mean duality, but we're complex, and it's in this complexity of this war between doing the right thing or wanting to stand for Jesus, but in the next moment we don't want to, in the same day, that it reveals how twisted human nature is. And it also reveals Jesus's prophecy, because Peter would have never seen this unless Jesus gave him the signal. When the rooster crows, I will make you aware of your fallen nature. I love the fact that God will give us these opportunities, whether if it's in people or situations where we would have never known certain things about ourselves, or maybe in children. Because I just read a post where a guy was like, listen, man, as a father, I am now revealed. There's things that I never knew I had about myself, but now that I have a child, man, good and bad, right? It reveals new things about you. And so this is what Jesus now does for Peter. In the prophetic statement, he says, listen, when the rooster crows, like you will have denied me. And so he needed that signal to become aware of how twisted, how broken he was. So that also is the juxtaposition there. Okay, let's run through these next ones. So the next group is the inquisitor. This is found in Annas and Caiaphas. You remember, Annas is the father-in-law of Caiaphas. Both are high priests, but Caiaphas is like the interim high priest for this season of Passover. And what they do is they question the truth. And it's not a question as in they want to know. It's a question as in, we don't really care about the answer. We just are trying to push our own agenda. Y'all ever had a conversation with somebody like that? They're asking you questions, but it's really to lead to an answer. We call that leading questions in surveys. For those of you that are really great in user experience, or maybe doing interviews and whatnot, they tell you about like social bias questions, right? And leading questions. And when you try to ask particular questions to get the person, manipulate the person to get to the answer that you wanted them to say, Jesus is like, listen, I don't got time for that. As a matter of fact, I've been here for 3 years and I've been teaching in public. Ask one of them. Annas, ask one of them. They know. As a matter of fact, y'all know, because y'all been running back to and fro. Whenever I'm healing somebody, like, I don't got time to waste. The big picture is here. Crucifixion is about to happen. We talked about this just before this. Jesus is pouring sweat and blood. He's now made up his mind. I have a big moment that's ahead of me. I don't got time for y'all asking questions when y'all were the same ones that were following me for 3 years. And now that I'm about to make this huge sacrifice, now y'all want to ask questions? I don't got time for that. And that's a whole huge thing too for some of us who are on the brink of our success, on the brink of a sacrifice moment, on the brink of a huge milestone. And those who have been rocking it with you, or those who have been following you at a distance, right when you're about to make that move, you've made the commitment that this is the time, they will show up and start asking you questions. We don't got time for questions no more. That time is over. Stop trying to entertain these people and their questions. Okay, the next one was the influencers, and these were found in the Jewish leaders. And I'm separating the Jewish leaders from the mob because they are the ones that manipulate the truth. And what Jesus has done, so with the inquisitor, what Jesus does is he reveals their insincerity. And what he also does is he also at the same time reveals his identity and his future glory. We don't see that in John, but we see that in Luke when he says, you will see the Son of God sitting at the right hand, the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of God, and he's going to be coming down. And like, oh my goodness, what else do we need? So once again, he's juxtaposing these two things. The next one is the influencers, Jewish leaders. That's those who are in the Sanhedrin, the elders, like all of them. They manipulate the truth. And we saw that when they get to Caiaphas. When they get to Caiaphas, Pilate. When they get to Pilate, they this is so Jesus reveals their hypocrisy and their malintent, because they said, listen, we can't go into the Roman government, the Romans headquarters, because it's Passover. We dare not defile ourselves, even though we have already defiled ourselves spiritually in front of the eyes of God in order to hand over his own son to be killed. We dare not walk into the praetorium. So we talked about that a little bit. I think that's when I just lost it.
Yeah.
Just lost it there. I'm not going to lose it again today. So we talked about the fact that a lot of us are holding on to a particular doctrine, one specific belief, when our entire, right? If thine whole eye be single, then the body, right? And God is like, y'all missing the whole point. You think that if you can just hold on to this particular truth, which isn't really truth as much as it is doctrine. Man, we don't got time. We don't got time to talk about, because when Jesus says, I am the truth, and when he says, love God and love man, and then from these two truths hang the laws and the prophets. There's a reason why he separates the two. Yeesh. Okay, so then he reveals their hypocrisy and their malintent. Okay, the next one, the decision makers. What we're talking about today, Pilate and Herod, are personified in these two. And the reason why they are, maybe I'm using the word personified wrong now, all this time I'm thinking about it, but they embody these two who are now personified as influencers for us, because they compromise the truth. How do they do that? They have a conversation. Well, actually, Pilate is the one that has the conversation with Jesus. Herod doesn't have a conversation with Jesus. Herod is just talking to himself, because he's asking Jesus, like, okay, so, what's good, bro? Like, you the king or not? And Jesus doesn't even answer. Which makes Herod then, abuse Jesus, and then pushes him back away, to Pilate. And as a matter of fact, you know what happened? I think it might be in Luke. Pilate and Herod weren't on good terms
until then.
And because of the shared, now I don't want to say shared, because Pilate didn't really hate him, but because of this, because of this, whatever it is, wasn't good, it wasn't righteous, they became best of buddies, right? An enemy of an enemy is my friend.
Luke 23:12, that very day, Pilate and Herod became friends with each other, for previously they had been at enmity with each other.
See, I think I was lying. Like the fact that, that whole enemy of an enemy is my friend. Listen here. They became, when you start to realize that you become friends, but you're not becoming friends because of the truth, but because of an avoidance or hatred of it, you better look out. Who are you binding yourself to? And I'm not just talking about relationships as far as romantic or wedding or, or marital, but more so just friends. What have you bound the foundation of your relationship on? Why are y'all really friends? Misery does love companies. Was that it? I'm not saying there's room for evolution and for you guys to grow, but you got to really look at the root. Just imagine that you have two people in power in government who were at odds, but because of one man, and not because of espousing and believing his truth, but because of doubting it on one side and because of hating it on the other, they say, oh yeah, yo, you remember that dude, Jesus? Yeah, man, when I sent him over to you and then you had beat him up a little bit. Yeah, man. And I honestly thought that he was innocent, but man, I had to give the people what they want. Like that is how they built their relationship. And it had nothing to do with either of them confessing for themselves that Jesus is Lord. Okay, so the next one is what Jesus does is he reveals their acquiescing nature, by the way, in the decision making group. The last one before Jesus is the one that's personified as truth is the bandwagoners. This is the crowd. These are the individuals that miss the truth. These are the people that we saw on January 6th. And what Jesus does is he reveals their blindness. You better believe that as the same multitude that Jesus fed.
Yeah.
Now, I could be geographically wrong about this because I know that was in Galilee, but the same multitude, stick with me here, that Jesus fed or healed is now the same multitude that celebrated him in John 17. It's the same multitude now that may not be close enough to hear the conversations and the manipulations that the Jewish leaders are doing, but you better believe they were there with Judas.
Yep.
They were there at the Praetorium, like y'all gotta follow me here. They're following Jesus as he's about to be crucified. And the majority of them don't even know why they are following. So we talked about this idea that there are a lot of people that showed up at the Capitol and they broke into it and they had no idea why they were there. And it's also revealed with Jesus on the cross saying, Father, forgive them because they have no idea what they're doing.
They got no clue.
And I just want to pause here and say, Pete, you know, if we can't forgive individuals who have maybe they've been blinded because of white privilege, or they have done what they did at the Capitol, or they're QAnon affiliates, or Bill Gates conspiracy theorists, or Mark of the Beast, chip in the hand believer, systemic oppressors. Let's get a little bit deeper. Cop killers or cops who kill civilians. If we can't get to the point where we choose to forgive these individuals, yes, hold them accountable. That's why justice is supposed to be served. And that is why I do believe that we need people who are active in the, not just activism, but social justice realm. There are people who are called to that thing. But if somebody comes and says, wow, you know, I'm sorry, or I didn't know what I was doing, we said, too late, then you're not a Christian. Wow. If your spirit says, oh, now you want to apologize, you're not a Christian. Let me back up. You might be a denier of the truth. you might be a follower of Christ, but you might just have the complexity that Peter did, right?
Yeah.
Were you praying for them on one end, but now they're coming back and telling you they're sorry. Like, but are you really? I don't know. I can't trust you. Well, Jesus can't trust you then. But yeah, he died for us. So I would beg for us, especially this year, to start checking when things are happening and people are making a decision to change their minds. Are we changing with them? Meaning changing the narrative of, well, you deserve X, Y, and Z, injustice. But now that you're coming in a different way, I choose to forgive you. Now, that doesn't mean that you remove the consequences a lot of the times, but man, your mindset, if you still believe that they, you know, not only do you deserve the consequence, but you don't deserve my forgiveness, then that's on you. Because God says, not Jesus says, who is God? Forgive and you'll be forgiven. Luke 6:37. Like, if you can't forgive, then I can't forgive you.
Man, that's so heavy.
Listen, like the last one. So we got the bandwagoners, man, the bandwagoners. We got a lot of bandwagoners. The last one, though, is the defendant, who is Jesus himself. And the defendant obviously defends the truth. And so John 14:6, Jesus says that he is the truth. And what Jesus does is he reveals his love to us, regardless of the multiple faces that we present to him.
Yeah.
When he chooses over and over again in 1 John 1:9 to forgive us and to cleanse us whenever we confess those faces to him.
Yeah.
So that's the summary. I know that was a long summary, but
no, it was much needed. Gives context, and those who weren't with us last night kind of sets the table, and those who are with us gets, you know, a different angle. And you know, Gerald says you got to go back and check it out again. You got to squeeze the lemon again and get some more juice out of it. Because even though what we shared, you know, there's so many things that we miss or we didn't have time to cover, and doing the recap gives us another chance to see it a different perspective. In fact, Gerald says, I still find redeeming value in them like Christ sees in us. His goal is that all come to repentance, not willing that any should perish.
That's right.
I think one of the toughest things is when we're in a justice mindset, no matter what the scenario is. You mentioned social justice. What about a personal wrong? Somebody offended you or did something very heinous to you.
Yeah.
It takes faith to embrace the reality that God is also working to save that person. Now, as you said, we're not removing consequences.
Right.
We're not removing consequences.
Mm-hmm.
But that forgiveness piece is is so key. As you said, Jesus says, listen, forgive us as we forgive. That's that prayer, that model prayer. Forgive us as we, in the same way as we are willing to. So yeah.
There are going to be some people who are going to struggle with being the betrayer of the truth, and you have to let go of feeling that you are supposed to experience particular consequences when God has chosen to shield you from that.
Wow. Yeah.
So you will begin to self-sabotage yourself into trying to get into the consequence that you should have had. That's because you're refusing to receive mercy. You refuse to accept the mercy because you believe that you are not worthy enough to be redeemed, even of the negative consequences that you should have received. That's Judas.
Yeah.
Right. As a matter of fact, we know that the rulers knew that Jesus was innocent because he comes to them and says, yo,
he came back.
I spilled innocent blood. And they were like, what's that to us? He throws the money. Like I could just imagine like him taking the bag, just hitting it on the ground, and scattering, rolling to their feet. And they're like, what's that got to do with us? We just used you to get what we always wanted. We needed an inside man, and he couldn't live with that. And so he chose to kill himself. What I want to encourage is for those of you who are in the betrayal or have been in the betrayal persona, that you don't think that it's too late or that your past is too egregious, that you have to end, maybe not your life physically, but you end the rest of your future by just living a meaningless life. Refusing the call that he has still placed over you, ultimately to be saved, but then to do something that he specifically has chosen you to do, which is getting into our next piece with the decision making, that he's chosen you to do, to serve other people in only the way that you can. You have a unique way of reaching people that I can't, that Pierre can't, that Gerald can't, that our worship and word community may not be able to in your way. We need you here. So if you feel like you're a betrayer, we all have betrayed Christ at one point
or
and
another.
He's willing to forgive us.
And it comes down to, from this point forward, what are the decisions that we are going to make in light of the truth that is Jesus? So we got a life update. I want to get to the life update. Then I want to transition to our questions. Lana says, praise the Lord. My sister was taken off the ventilator and has now been breathing on her own for over 24 hours. So I didn't want to miss that. Didn't want to skip over it. I know you already saw it in the feed, but I wanted to pull it up on the screen for everyone who's watching the replay as well. Like that's, man, just got to celebrate God for what he's doing. What we recognize that he's doing in the life of our community. So let's talk a little bit. Let's transition and talk a little bit about decisions. The title of this session is, or this conversation is, Before Your Next Move. And it's really based on 5 questions, 5 questions you need to ask. And if you feel confident, in the comment section, if you're getting ready to make a major decision, if you feel confident in us using that as a contribution to our conversation, that we can pull some reference points from. If you're getting ready to make a major decision, thinking about a major decision, go ahead and throw that in the comment section. A book I've started reading, and my wife bought for me, it's a book by Andy Stanley. The title of the book is Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets. 5 questions to help you determine your next move. Better decisions, fewer regrets. 5 questions to help you determine your next move, by Andy Stanley. So I'm reading it for you. So if you don't have time, or it's not not on your shelf to read, and what I just wanted to do was pull out those 5 questions as it relates to decision making. So I know for like Debbie says they're moving to Georgia, I believe that was something that we talked about for several weeks, and job changes. If you got a major decision that you're on the cusp of making, or you've been wrestling with, throw that in the comment section, and we want to apply these 5 questions and then their 5 corresponding declarations to this life decision that you're about to make. But we also, Chris, want to apply these 5 questions to some of the characters that we talked about last night and their approach to wrestling with the truth. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the first one.
Okay.
if I get it here. So as we're getting ready to make decisions, and I know you're going to throw some in the comment section, is the first critical question, and these 5 questions are not the limit or the extent of questions you could ask, but it is a good starter question to ask. I'm getting ready to make a major decision, Zav. I'm getting ready to make a major decision, Donna. I should ask myself this key question, the integrity question. Am I being honest with myself? Really? Before I make this move, before my next move, let's point this way. Yeah, before my next move, I have to deal with this integrity question. Am I being honest with myself really? Now, thinking back on what you were sharing last night, Chris, there's a couple of different characters that I could apply this question to.
Yeah.
And one of the first ones that just kind of jumps out and comes to mind is Judas.
Yep.
Like when Judas makes the decision to lead the mob into the grove of olive trees, into the Garden of Gethsemane with where Jesus is. And we can make some arguments. People say, well, he was doing it because he was trying to get Jesus to stand up and take control and become king, or he was doing it for this and that and the other. I wonder, was there a moment where the Holy Spirit was like, yo, Judas, like, let's be honest here about what your intent is.
Can I? Okay. So I can't remember where it is in Matthew, but the feast, the parable of the feast, the marriage feast.
Yeah.
There is a parallel because I believe it also is in Matthew where when Judas comes, you remember we saw in John, Jesus is buck. Like, who y'all here for? Who y'all want?
Yeah.
You know? And he's
like
I'm
said,
him.
that Nazarene bass in his voice.
Listen, so I think it's in Matthew where he says, friend, why have you come? Yeah. So he still considers Judas, even up to that very moment, friend. In the marriage feast parable, where the man who is invited or who he comes in and, you're supposed to change your clothes. And that's a whole nother thing right there. The king's clothes that you now need to wear, being symbolized as righteousness, right? He entered in, refused to change his clothes, and he's sitting at the table.
Yep.
Right. And this is Jesus saying the kingdom of heaven is like, right? So he's sitting at the table and the king comes and says, friend. He doesn't see him as a betrayer, as a rebel yet. He says, friend, why haven't you changed your, and it says that he stood there speechless. Now, oftentimes it's interpreted not as he's shocked and scared, because that would have some sense of guilt and repentance. No, the speechless was like, well, I mean, I'm here, right? Like what I need to, I'm here. I answered the invitation. I'm at the table. Let's eat.
Yeah.
Like you can't eat with those clothes on. So it was even up until that very point that he was considered friend, because he still had a chance. To change his clothes. And I really believe that you are onto something here where Jesus is approaching Judas even before he hands him over. He's like, friend, which probably would trigger something to Judas with the parable.
Right. Heard that.
Friend.
Before. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not too late, friend. But even after he betrayed him, it wasn't too late. But
even after, and that's one of the biggest lies the enemy tells us, is that even after, say we are haphazard and foolhardy and quick to make a decision, and it goes terribly wrong. It's like it's all over the place. We can't get the toothpaste back in the tube. The devil says, "Oh, it's too late."
Yeah,
and Jesus is like, "Nah, you're gonna have to wrestle with the consequences of squeezing all the toothpaste out of the tube. But no, we can clean this up. It's not too late."
Yeah.
And I think when we're dealing with this integrity question, before my next move, my next major decision, I got to be honest. Why do I want the X that I'm going after, the X, Y, or Z that I'm going after? In my heart of hearts, why do I want it?
Yes.
Now, why do I want the car? Like the car. Why do I want the house? Why do I want the promotion? Why do I want the acknowledgement? Why do I want to look up and see, 10,000 people watching? What can I be honest with myself? Yeah. And for a lot of us, if we're honest, the hesitancy to be honest is because the answer that we would give would
Mhm.
tell the truth about the things that we want or lean in the direction of that aren't really for the glory of God. I want it
Mm.
because does and I know we're maybe being a little hard on Judas, and it's easier to be a little hard on Judas than it is on ourselves.
Mm.
You
Mhm.
know, can Judas be honest? And he stands to benefit greatly if in that
Yeah.
moment in the Garden of Gethsemane, if Jesus was like, "Who y'all here for?" No, it's
Mm.
not going down like that. Everybody gets obliterated. Jesus sets up a kingdom. Judas stands to benefit
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
greatly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how much for him and the other disciples are they frustrated?
Mm. Mm.
I'm frustrated not because Jesus chose to die. I'm frustrated because what I
Mm.
see in Jesus happening right now negates the opportunity that I thought I was going to have if
The
Jesus did it
opportunity.
the other way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So before our next major
Wow.
decision, we got to ask,
Mm.
like, the honest, am I being honest about
Yeah.
why I'm doing it, the reason, the condition of my heart? Like, am I
Mhm.
being
Mhm.
honest? Some of us are grasping for things that
Yes.
God is saying, nah, not that one.
Yeah.
Nah, not
Yeah.
that one. And
Yeah.
we as if bathing it in prayer,
Mm.
we are more intent on changing the mind of God than we are
Mm.
on letting the Spirit of God change our hearts. So if I
The mob prayed in the Capitol Hill. They
listen,
they had a whole full-fledged prayer. Full-fledged. You would have thought they were. Yeah.
so here's the yeah, Gerald says, yep, motive. Yep, motive.
Yeah, ask the yeah. So integrity also is, ask yourself. I think it's also in the planner that you have. It's also in the one that I have as well, where you write down the goal and list 3 to 5 motivations.
Yeah.
Why? You know,
Yep.
what's your why behind this? So another way to answer this question, am I being honest with myself, is, well, be honest with your whys first.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then separate yourself. Now it's kind of like a metacognitive work. Now that you have your whys, now ask yourself, is this why I want to do this? Or
Yeah.
what is now my true intent based on the whys that I actually put down? Do they align? And if they don't align, then you're not being honest with yourself. If they do align, then you more than likely are. And that's hard work, because the spirit is where we have to trust and believe will reveal to us our own honesty to ourselves. He
Yo.
reveals all truth. So
Yo.
even then, writing your own motivations, you can mess yourself up. John 17, Jeremiah 17:9. I hate to use this text out of context, but it says that the heart is deceitful and desperately wicked. Above all things, who can know it? But then on the other side, the answer to that question, I, the Lord, know.
Yeah.
We forget that
No.
part, but he answers it. I know. So then that means that we need to connect with the one who knows, even our whys, and our whys genuine to pursue this goal. So yeah, you hit it right on the money, Gerald.
So here's the decision that goes
Mm.
along with the integrity question. I will not lie to myself even when the truth makes me feel bad.
Mercy.
So
Mercy.
all right, I gotta pull back the curtain a little bit, you know.
Okay.
Um just started pastoring first district, right?
Mhm.
So we talk about motive. We talk about the integrity question. We're
Yeah.
wrestling with the question of, am I being honest with myself really, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Just started pastoring, small district, handful of members. The push, oh, Chris, we might get in trouble, man. I don't
Oh
know who you're
man.
gonna get in trouble
Oh
with.
man.
The push is to baptize people. Do you know why? Do you know why I even convince myself of the push to baptize people?
Break
Because
it
we
down.
say that your baptism number is a demonstration that you're actually working. Ah, man, that's such a misguided statement. We don't have time to pull back all the layers of that. But the
Yeah.
motivation, whew,
Mm.
the motivation in a
Mm.
small space
Mm.
to baptize people is so that I will get the recognition that
Mm.
gets me out of the small space.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
And I can't
Mhm.
speak for everybody. I'm just talking about what I wrestle with
Yeah.
early in pastoral ministry. The
Yeah.
motivation is if I show you that I'm working, if I baptize enough people, if my numbers are high enough, don't ask me where the people are after I baptize them. Don't ask me the condition of their family after the evangelistic series is over and I'm no longer giving them rides to church or no longer giving them food for groceries. Don't ask me what happens to them 3, 6, 9 months later. The only thing that matters is I show the quality of my calling by demonstrating I can baptize people for the reason of when my name comes up to move from one small church to a medium church.
Yeah.
You can see the record that I've checked off boxes.
And there's a reason why small churches stay small.
Listen,
the stepping stones. It wasn't designed for them to grow. There's a reason why I just understood this maybe within the past few years that there are punishment churches.
Oh, brother, don't.
There are healing churches, right? And in my mind, well, we ain't well, let me not.
Yeah,
we ain't employed by but the point is the motivation, right? Because your motivation is now influenced by the institution's motivation.
Absolutely.
And we've said this time and time again, but you got to pay to play. And unfortunately, that also happens within the religious system that we
didn't we just talk about it in the trial of Jesus?
Exactly. Yeah.
In the trial of Jesus, there are people who refuse, not just Judas, refused to ask, am I being honest here about what's going on?
Right.
Really? Am I really being honest about what's going on? So when Judas comes back and was like, yo, innocent blood, like no good.
Come on.
What? And they're like, I don't care. That's ain't got nothing to do with me. Had they been honest, they been honest in that moment, they would have tried everything they could to stop what was about to happen. Now we can get into debates around, once the clock is set and once it goes, but that integrity question, and it's not just for people in small churches. It's not just for pastors in small churches. It's for all of y'all in corporate America, all of y'all who work for nonprofits, all of us in church ministry who are trying to have a special day so your ministry can be recognized. You're begging to preach or whatever it is. You're showing off to friends and family members, whatever it is. The integrity question says, am I being honest about why I'm doing it?
Hey Pete, can I just drop this in here as we go to the next one?
I'll pull it up.
I am over being asked to be a part of particular programs to be considered the token young adult when I'm almost 36. Like,
you're not young adult no more. 35 is the cutoff.
Right. I'm what they call it, the not the at risk. What do they call them? The aged out. I done aged out of the system.
You aged out. Yep.
Right. When we shouldn't be. This is integrity now. Don't ask for your youth to be a part of programs because you want to have a persona, or it's not a persona, a perception is the word, of youth and vitality. When that's not what is underneath. Better yet, ask that same or those same individuals to run the program so that you can take your hand off it and watch how it will transform this virtual world that we are on right now. We still have it. I guarantee right now, most of our churches are not running the way that they could run. There's a reason why you have young adults and youth that are rocking it on TikTok and killing the game on YouTube. We're talking about reaching the masses here, but we still want to have, the purple. Okay. Anyway, I say all of that to say, motives. Check your motives.
All right. So let's go to the second question. I know we're in the midst of making major life decisions. You've talked about some things that you want to change in 2021. You put them in your prayer journal. All of these things, and we're wrestling with questions that you need to ask before your next move. And the first question was, am I being honest with myself? So, all right. So let's take these comments. Carlos says, Ministry Day should be reflective of the work that your ministry has been involved in during the year. It should be. It should be the event
for the year. Oh, Carlos. OG Carlos, you hit it on the money.
Yeah.
Hit on the money. Okay, I don't want y'all to feel like, and somebody mentioned it yesterday.
Mhm.
And they said, I can't remember who said it. But they said for those of us that may seem as if we're complaining, it's not that we're complaining. We just have a very, very particular passion and a desire that has been squelched for a very long time to reach our own people. So
Yeah.
for some of us, when you hit a particular button and then you hear us go off, and it's because we can see where the need is, and for one reason or another, it's not being met. And many people say, "Oh, well, why don't you just do it?" That's not how it works. Oh, there's much work to be done. We love to have. No, you don't. And I'm speaking from
That's true.
experience, where
Yeah.
I will show up and give me the money, and it's gonna boil down to that too. And let's do it, and then we have a problem.
Yeah.
Because it's going to cause some systemic changes. There are those of us that have been called to make systemic changes, which undergirds the root, the motive of how evangelism is done. And we don't want to touch the root. So we can have these. I remember conference I was in, they had be a conference president or be a thing for a day. Y'all know that anything can happen for a day. That's like taking off a holiday. So you can have a young person be in your
work day
for a day and nothing, nothing happened. Give them a month, give them a quarter. Start to see things buckle. I'm like, now you're starting to feel the weight of what administration is. I know that. Like,
The honesty piece in that is, I don't want to lose. And we're all like this to a certain degree. I don't want to lose the perception of my value in this space. And I am scared of what life looks like outside of this space. So honestly, I'm about self-preservation.
Yep.
Like that's why.
Yep.
I'm about, that's the honest. And when you say it out loud, man, it feels so heavy.
Yeah. But it's the truth.
It's the truth. And that's why Jesus was asking such pointed questions.
Yes.
Even the question, who are you here for? Like, what are we doing here?
Jesus was doing a metacognitive exercise with them for them to come out and say what was really on their hearts. And even then they couldn't get it.
Even then.
Are you the king of the Jews? As you say I am. It's like, well, I did say, but do I believe that? They weren't catching it.
Yo, take this from Lana.
So Lana's saying, I'll be honest, I want to move to the East Coast because now that I am on the back nine of golf of my life. And so I want to be where my needs are met emotionally. And I'm exhausted by meeting the needs of others financially. Have mercy. I know it's selfish, but it also feels like preservation. Here in Cali, amongst my family, it feels like constant giving. Lana, thank you for your transparency. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect, parallel to run to the rest of these questions that we're asking. And it's that first question, Lana. Are you being honest with yourself? And the honest answer, she says, it just feels like the constant giving has exhausted her.
Yeah.
For some of us, we wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
We would think that to declare that there's something wrong.
That's why we need a rooster crow signal every now and again. Peter would have never gotten it until he didn't get it the first time. He didn't get it the second time, but the third time.
Yeah.
Cockle doodle. Oh man, he was right all along. And sometimes we need that people and surround. This is where accountability comes in, P, man. I appreciate you because when I'm not on the money, you tell me some stuff.
Yeah.
Like, well, have you thought about?
Yeah.
It was like, no, I haven't. Dang, maybe I should. And it always doesn't need to come with a smack, right? The Batman and Robin meme where he's smacking Robin because it doesn't always have to be that way. But you do need individuals who are going to call you out or at least challenge you to think about your underlying motives of why you're doing what you're doing. They at least have to ask you the question to your question so that you can then revise it and say, like Pilate, what is truth?
Yo,
yes. Now we're getting somewhere.
It's wild that you would say that because Monica, I'm not going to pull it up on the screen. If you're in the chat and you see it, you see the question there. But Monica has a question for Lana that aligns with what you just said. Okay, this is what you presented. Let's dig a little deeper. And ask. Okay, so what's underneath all of that? And I think it's cool that that's happening in the in the chat. So yeah, a lot goes down in the chat, y'all.
A lot goes down in the Worship
goes
and
down
Word
in the
community
chat.
comments, man.
Let's move to, man, 50 minutes in. Let's
Just
move
on
to
the-
the second question.
Okay.
All right. Question number 2. Before I make this major decision, what story do I want to tell? It's the legacy question.
Mhm, mhm.
What, and it's more so when it's all over.
Yeah.
What's the story that I want to tell? I mean, you're the storytelling guy, so kind of walk us
What do
through
you say?
as we're wrestling with this question in terms of
Yeah.
legacy.
So, I can only speak from my own truth, right? So now that I think I might have mentioned this earlier last year, after having turned 35, where the average lifespan of a United States citizen, or I think of the world, like somebody who's living right now in any part of the world, I believe, I could be wrong, but is the age of 70. It might just be US because we're so unhealthy, but it's the age of 70. So when I hit 35, I realized, okay, so I am at the apex of my entire existence, because half of 70 is 35. Okay. So now there's this thought of what I wanted to become,
Mhm.
and it start to shift, even though, and I think it makes a difference when you do have family and when you do have children, it shifts quicker.
Yeah.
But when you're older, you get to kind of still wrestle with some stuff, but you start rolling down the hill, and as you're rolling down the hill and looking up and wondering, well, what did I leave behind? So there's this, I'm at this peak where it's like, okay, whoever I've desired to become now is merged with, what do I want people to remember me as when this is all said and done?
Yeah.
When you think of, we talked about the late great Kobe Bryant, right,
Mhm.
and the legacy he left behind, and we were talking about, there's a term that you used, his the second, not the second
half.
wave,
Second
the
half.
second half.
Yeah.
Yeah, the second half significance, and we were saying, listen, he was just beginning. Well, that's still also part of his story.
Yeah.
The story that he also left behind in that instance was, man, if he was still alive, he would have been making some major waves in other parts of his life. When I say other parts, like different industries, and not
Yeah.
just the sports arena, right? Philanthropic, right? So anyway, so what story do you want to tell? Well, the question you have to ask yourself first is, who's the hero of your story?
Yeah.
Well, you are. Like, you are the hero of your story. You are the person, the protagonist, who is leading out and walking through every part of the plot. Now, we already know that there are 3 acts to a story. I don't want to break the whole thing down, but there's the setup, there's the context, the introduction, who you are, your ordinary life. But then there's the second act, which is the obstacle or the challenge that's preventing you to accomplish the want, the desire, or the change that needs to happen. Act 1 doesn't work, or Act 2 doesn't work, unless in Act 1 you have a want, need, desire, or something that has to change.
Mhm.
There is no, because if the plot doesn't thicken to a dragon, to the fire, to something that is huge that you need to overcome or slay or whatever it is, or even if it's yourself, you get to that moment and you look around and, oh, it's me,
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo joint.
Yeah.
I'm the man behind the mask, right?
Right.
Then your desire isn't big enough. It isn't huge enough, because you have to now ask yourself, what do you really want? What do you want out of this life? What is the story that you want to tell? Your story is going to be, well, this is where I was. This is what I had to do in order to overcome these things. This is what I learned along the way. And then Act 3 is, I achieved it.
So Paul.
There's the resolution, right? It's the climax. So too often times I think we focus more on the climax than, well, I'm still in Act 1 and I haven't really gotten to the call to adventure. I haven't accepted my calling to be the hero of my own story just yet. And so, you always hear me talk about, if you're not the hero of your story, eventually you become the villain of someone else's.
Yeah.
So what story do I want to tell? Let's break it down even further as we go to the next. What do you, I envision you having children, or envision you having maybe really close friends or relatives, and you're sitting down, I was going to say around the campfire, but you're sitting down in the couch, and they ask you, grandma, grandpa, what was life like? Like, what'd you do? What would be the one, if you just had one story that you could tell them, what would be the one narrative that would probably inspire, caution, motivate, them to want to be, or maybe not Not every story is a great story. Some stories have an ending. It's like, oh man, I really don't want to do that. I got to listen to. What is that one story that you would share? I'm not saying that that would be your legacy story, but that does have a huge part to play in it.
So can you imagine if your pilots, if your pilot
Mhm.
and your grandchildren
Mm.
come to you
Mm.
and say, like, this whole Jesus thing is like going around the world. Like, this thing is crazy.
Mhm.
So when you met Jesus,
Wow.
what was that like?
What was that like? Yeah.
And after grandma even told you, be easy. Like, because his wife was like, listen, I had a dream. Don't mess around. don't mess around. Even after grandma told you, like, be very careful. Like, why did you still make the decision that you made?
Mm.
So to go along with this question, I will write a story I'm proud to tell. And this is so key, Chris.
Yeah.
One decision at a time. Like from this, in spite of everything that's happened in your personal narrative up to this point, in your relationship with God up to this point, from this point forward, you can make a different decision. You can make a different decision that ultimately results in a totally different story. How do I know? Thief on the cross.
Yeah. Thank you. Wow.
Thief on the cross is like, yo, I'm not gonna miss it.
Because even while on the cross, he was part of the naysaying group. Like
he's
it's not too late, y'all. One decision at a time. I love that.
Yeah. All right. So question 3. Let's see if we can pick up the pace just a little bit. It's the conscience question. Question number 3. As I'm getting ready to make a major life decision, I gotta ask this question: is there a tension that needs my attention? Is there a tension, or is there a strain that needs my attention?
What you saying?
I go back to Pilate. I know we just referenced. I go back to Pilate. When Pilate says, "There's nothing," I don't see anything wrong with Jesus.
Yeah,
like his conscience in that moment was, "This is not whatever y'all saying this is. This is not." And that tension there between how I'm feeling in this moment, I'm face to face with Jesus, I'm face to face with truth. I should just let him go.
Yeah.
But the tension of the moment, can you imagine being in that leadership position? You got a crowd making a whole bunch of noise. You got a parallel kind of quasi leadership structure and the religious authority making noise. You realize if you don't handle this situation in a way that quiets the noise, you are either going to be removed from your leadership position, or you're going to be or killed, which you will be removed if you're killed.
Right.
And you're having to wrestle with, if I let Jesus go, it may start a riot. Even though everything about me says,
wow,
nah, I should let him go.
Yeah.
And there in our personal lives, Chris, we have that same tension.
Yeah.
Everything says I should probably walk away. Everything says I should probably refrain from this. Man, I just want to get this one last comment, this one zinger in. I just want to I'm gonna just hit send on this, and I'm a sub tweet, or throw shade digitally. I just want to get it. I'm just gonna get, and everything says don't do it. Like it's not worth it. Don't do it. It's gonna cause a problem. Don't do it. Just leave it. Just don't do it. And you're just like, nah. Boop.
When I look, hey, listen, man, I came across, so truth moment. Because I still have some of these emails that I've had with like an old shady sub landlord. Oh my goodness. And the stuff that I wrote, I said, wow, if he would have watched Worship and Word today, what would he think? Wow.
Yeah.
Like, because my conscience, the moments when y'all know I'm good with words. So I'm getting it. I'm getting busy with the wordage. I'm just getting in. And I ain't wrong. The stuff I'm saying ain't wrong, but the spirit of the thing though.
Ooh.
And I look back and I say, wow, there were many moments that I should have counted even to 7.
Even
and I
to 7.
probably would have just would have let it go.
Yeah.
Let me talk to y'all in person.
Yeah.
Versus, and all of that to say, your conscience will either bother you then or it will bother you now if you haven't reconciled
Wow.
between what you were supposed to do and you didn't, or you weren't supposed to do and you did. Okay, so how do I clear my conscience because it's already happened, Chris? You forgive yourself. This is not for those of you that are in attention right now. So I'm speaking about you already done broke the tension. Like you done rode the tension down. Like you that just right. No. This is for those of you like, but your conscience is still bothering you. That's because you haven't let it go. You haven't let it go. You have to choose to let it go, because if you don't, you will repeat the cycle.
Yeah.
You will repeat this cycle. So I just wanted to share that with anyone who might be, on the other side of this, but particularly this question though, P, I know is more so for the present.
Yeah.
Is there a tension that needs?
Gerald says serious tension with a decision right now, and here's the decision. I will explore. Because that's what happens. You get that twinge, and you're just like, nah, I'm just gonna get rid of that.
Yeah.
No, you gotta explore it. What's going on that's leading to these feelings? What am I missing? And counting to 10 or counting to 7 is not just before I say something stupid.
Right.
That reflection moment, even especially with great things, right?
Yep.
Especially with great things. Sometimes we just need to count to 10. Just this a great thing. All right, but let me make sure, because maybe it's just me, but I have chosen a lot of great things that were not God things.
Yeah. That's when you get to a certain level, and I don't say that to try to demean or because we'll be on one level today and another level tomorrow.
You already know
today and then down tomorrow, right? But there is a particular level when it's not about right and wrong, but good versus better.
Yeah,
better versus best, best versus bested. And that's when those tensions start to get really nuanced. Explore them.
When this comes up a lot, Chris, when we have to choose between job offers.
Yeah.
Good job offers.
Yeah.
They're good.
Yeah.
Great. Both great salaries, both great places to work, great opportunities, which you're trained and passionate and gifted to work in.
A great example.
How do you make the choice when you have 2 good things on the table?
And they're probably like in 2 different locations.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
And you always get that twinge. The Holy Spirit start whispering. Not loud, start whispering. Both are good, but one is better. Both are good, but one is better.
One is better.
And I don't want to embrace that, man. I just want to do what I want to do.
Yep. Hey, that's real. That's real.
Right?
That's real. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Question number 4. Before your next move, before your major decision. Question number 4.
Ooh. You just let into it.
What is the wise thing to do? Not what's the smart thing to do, not what's the easy things to do, not what's the popular thing to do, not what all my friends would do. What's the wise?
Break that down between the smart versus the wise. What is that? Because we got a lot of intelligent folk in our community.
Yeah.
Intelligence is not an issue. But how does that differentiate between being wise? This is
Okay, so there's this old like preacher story, right?
mm,
Preacher story is like there's this guy who needed his engine fixed. You heard the story before.
probably
He needs
did.
his engine fixed.
Mm.
So he calls a mechanic, and mechanic comes, listens to the engine for a little bit, pulls out the hammer, smacks the engine,
Mm.
starts working again, goes back, sends him a bill for $1,000.
Mm.
And the guy was like, nah, man, you got to itemize this joint. And he's like, oh, cool, I'll itemize it. He said, hitting the engine with a hammer, $1. Knowing where to hit the engine with the hammer, $999. And I mean, we can knowledge, we have unfettered access to knowledge. You are one Google search away, and we don't want to even talk about how Google searches are whatever sales. They're sales driven. Like you can be number one in Google if you pay enough money.
Right.
But we have, man, we know in our personal conversations, the webinars and seminars and telesummits and YouTube videos and Bible studies and conferences, sermons, all the stuff we listen to, all of that repository of knowledge. Wisdom, though, is where do you put it now that you have it?
Yeah.
What bucket does it go in? So a lot of us are super smart, which means we have repositories of knowledge. But we don't exercise wisdom because we never, you have friends, I have friends, some of the smartest people you've ever met. But when you look at their life, you're like, you're too smart for that. What is going on? All that accumulation of knowledge did not translate into applying that knowledge. Wisdom is the application of knowledge to transformation. So when I'm looking at the wise thing in my life, I'm saying, okay, if I apply what I know and what I study, what's the best place to put it and what's going to be the outcome?
I like that. You said to transformation. It's not just applying it, but it has to change something.
It does. I mean, I can't tell you how many times where I was like, oh, I'm gonna cook this recipe that I see online. And I gather all my ingredients. And the first part of the recipe says, and it didn't come up in the list of when I was looking at what to do. It doesn't come up in the list, doesn't come up in the description. It comes up in the video where the person says, okay, as you're preparing, set your ingredients aside for 2 hours. What? I gotta eat in 40 minutes. But I had knowledge. I had the supplies. I had all of the tools, but I didn't have the wisdom to know there's some things that can only be done in a certain time frame. So we all of us walking around here super smart, like we got smartphones.
Right.
But are we applying that? We got enough knowledge in our phones to start businesses, to have private ministries, to fix our cars, to manage our bank accounts, to live healthier lives. We got a lot of knowledge in our thumbs. But
that wisdom piece.
And here's the decision. I will take the past, present, and future into consideration. So as I'm about to make this new decision, when I consider the decisions I made in the past, when I consider how my life looks right now, and when I consider the stories I want to tell in the future, what's the wise thing for me to do?
Wow. Yeah.
Had I did that, I probably wouldn't have got that credit card freshman year.
We'd have all been like, no, we're good. Oh man. Yeah. And it sounds so simple, but you know what? The older you get, you realize, I recently watched Avengers Endgame again.
Mhm.
And if that ain't about decisions,
About decisions.
the wisdom to take into consideration your past, present, and your future. Wow. Oh yeah, you know what? Yeah, I would encourage for those of you that are you don't have to be a cinephile. You don't have to love movies like I might, but for those of you that um do enjoy watching movies, get your favorite time travel one.
That's a good
They
one.
all they all
That's
have
a good
some
idea.
right. Even if it's Back to the Future, there's a theme in each of them where there's a particular decision. Even Groundhog's Day, like even the old school one technically is
Yeah.
where there are decisions that are made, and even if it feels as if it's futile to Edge of Tomorrow. I love Edge of Tomorrow. I'm going astray now. The point is there are particular decision points. Yeah, let's go with that for right now. Decision points in each and every one of those movies, which does affect something in the past,
Yep.
does affect something that's currently happening to them. Like there's a transformation that's happening to them. And then obviously, which a lot of them focus on until you get more nuance, the future. So sometimes it's hard for us to see it for ourselves. So you got to watch, and that's why Jesus spoke in parables.
Hmm.
Just many oratory movie flicks for them to see what they couldn't see in themselves. So he has to say, well, this is what the kingdom of heaven is like. I want you to consider the past, present, and future of your decision. You can't see it in yourself. Let me give you a story so that you perhaps can see it within the farmer that is sowing seeds.
Listen,
So
the decisions I make today, my grandchildren will have to deal with it in the future.
that is such a great way, especially for those who have kids. Like that is a great way to frame that. That is such a great way to frame that.
I mean, when my daughters get older, and
Yeah.
their children ask them, "What was granddad like? What did
Mhm.
granddad do?"
Mhm.
The answer to that question
Wow. Yeah.
is what's happening in my life that my kids are observing at 10 and 12 years old.
Yep. Yep.
So,
It's so
whew.
good.
All right, last question. And we've been wrestling with these questions to ask before your next big decision because we're looking at Andy Stanley's Better Decision, Fewer Regrets. And I know we all got a lot of regrets, or maybe we all don't. I know we all have some, at least one regret,
At
thing
least.
that we wish we would have done differently. And had we asked more questions, we could have avoided some of the not so great
Mm.
decisions that we made. So here's our last one. Oh,
Andy just gonna drop it like that?
yeah. Yeah.
He saved the best for last.
Yeah. Question number 5. What does love require of me?
Mm. Mm, mm, mm.
Yo, that's First Corinthians, man. When Paul was
Mm,
like, listen,
mm, mm,
we can do all of this stuff, but we don't have love.
mm.
Like, what's the point? So, in the introduction to the book, Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets, Andy Stanley, he sets it up this way. He says, the most foolish thing that we could say is that my decisions only impact me.
Yeah.
Or even how Lana puts it, your indecision, your indecision
Yeah.
can impact generations to come. So
Absolutely.
not just what you do that maybe you shouldn't, as you referenced before, Chris, what about the things that you didn't do
Mhm.
that you should?
Should have done. And y'all don't take the Tina Turner route talking about what's love got to no.
No, no, no.
This is, you better answer what does love require of me, because you know what that does though? No, that does be in there. I said that in just now, but the reason why I
Yeah.
say that is because Pilate had a similar he had a similar inquiry when it came to truth.
Yeah.
Where he says, well, what is truth?
Yeah.
And it may be perhaps why Jesus didn't answer him at, not sure why, but perhaps he wasn't really talking to Jesus as much as he might have been talking to himself introspectively. Maybe it was rhetorical, or maybe Jesus said enough where that question was really irrelevant because of everything that Jesus had already told him Maybe he told him enough to, and he did, because he said this man is innocent, right? Maybe just as Pilate was, perhaps, I don't know if he fully was, but let's just, for the sake of argument right now, wrestling with the idea of what truth was when truth was staring him in the face and talking with him for the last, let's say hour, right? Let's just, he had to define what truth was for himself, or at least to identify and become aware of it. I think that this question is going to be challenging for those of us who have a warped view of what love is. If we don't have an accurate understanding of what love really is, then we will hold ourselves responsible or obligated to things or people what we have twistedly chosen to identify love as. So if you're in a toxic relationship, well, this relationship requires me to stay in it because X, Y, and Z. Or, there's a particular habit. It's like, well, this habit is helping me to cope. Or you're in a particular environment. It's like, well, this environment makes me feel free. Or you're in you have particular equipment. I'm just looking at my lights around me. Like, just like, well, this makes me feel like I'm a professional, or whatever it is. What does and once again, don't try to take love as like this red heart symbol and put it out in front like what do you want from me? That's not how love works. Because Andy Stanley puts it right there in the beginning. It's about relationship. So what does the love in the relationship require you to do? What does the sacrifice? I remember Dr. Jones, R. Clifford Jones, said it a long time ago, stuck with me ever since, that love is a decision.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Now, it is also the culmination of emotion, feelings and desires and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's a culmination of all of those things to make a, go figure, decision.
I think one of the things that we struggle with as it relates to this relationship question is that quite often sometimes the best demonstration of love is an aspect of denial. For example, I love my daughters, right?
Yeah.
I love my daughters. And because I love them, you have to go to bed at a certain time.
Yeah.
I love my daughters, and because I love my daughters, you cannot be on your digital devices ad infinitum.
Right.
There is a cutoff. There is a limit. There is a standard.
Yeah.
Because I love you, there will be some things that I will have to limit or totally deny your access to. Because of your maturity level, because of your, responsibility level. And I think what you were saying before, sometimes in tough situations, in traumatic situations, in situations where you feel overwhelmed or you feel guilty, because there is a guilt that comes from sometimes being in a familial context and you have made certain decisions, or because of the decisions of the previous generation set you up to make certain decisions. And then those decisions have led to outcomes where your life is on a certain level, or you have certain opportunities. But then how do you wrestle with that guilt factor of, you made sacrifices for me to get to this level, to make this decision, and these are the outcomes. But does that mean that now the rest of my existence is settled on, I don't even know how to frame it, but
yeah. I see where you're coming.
Like, am I now shackled to filling in the gaps, emotionally, socially, financially, whatever, for you, because your sacrifice got me to this place to make this decision? Like, at what? Like, how do we? It's really gray, right? It's messy. It's gray. And I think I even trying to resonate or perspectively what Lana was saying. I'm trying to do like this half of my life, and I've given. I've given. How do I incorporate self-care and personal spirituality and my own mental well-being in line with the sacrifice that I've made? Like, what does love look like? And if we're not careful, we know there's
Such a great question, man.
I think we talked about it before. One of my favorite movies is I Am Sam. It's one of my favorite movies. And Sean Penn plays an individual who has a developmental deficiency. And his daughter does not have any developmental challenges. His daughter gets to a point where I think it's 3rd grade or 4th grade where she has surpassed, the IQ level of her dad.
Oh wow, yeah.
And the teacher is like, your daughter's not even trying anymore. Not even trying anymore. Like, she's just not turning in homework. She's not. So Sean Penn, I can't remember his name in the movie, has a conversation with his daughter. He's like, yo, what's good? What's going on? The daughter says, if I keep studying, oh my goodness. If I keep studying to the effect, I'm paraphrasing, I'm going to leave you behind.
Yeah. Wow.
And Sean Penn says to his daughter, he says something to the effect of, because I love you, I want you to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you see this little girl wrestling with the mental capacity of my father. I have surpassed it in the 3rd grade. And if I keep going, I'm going to go, so far past him. So I'll just stop studying.
Wow. Right.
I'll stop pushing. I'll stop stretching so that I can stay on the same level as my dad. And her dad says,
wow.
Because I love you, I need you to keep going.
Wow. Wow.
Man, these are real conversations, real stuff that y'all wrestling with. I've been in the classroom teaching students, and they're like, Professor Quinn, next semester I got to go home. I can't go to school anymore. I got to work.
Yeah.
To help, to help my family. Like, these tense
That's real
things. And how do we wrestle with it?
What does love require of me? Wow.
Yeah.
It's the toughest question, I think, of all of them, because after you do the introspective work of your own motives, your own maturity, your own story, your conscience and the tensions, multiple tensions. Then you got to get to, how am I interconnected with other people who are requiring? And it's not, and it's well, yeah, we can do the decision, because it's not even, and I want to separate. I wanted to separate. It's not, what do other people want, as much as the question, guys, is what does the love in that relationship require?
Yeah.
Not the preference.
Yeah.
What is necessary in order for this thing to work?
That's man, Chris, that's so key. Because preference is different. Deciding with the best interest of others in mind is not the same as deciding with the preference of others in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I look at Acts 1 and Jesus is like, I'm out. That was not the disciples' preference.
Oh, no. He's like, but if I don't go, y'all, listen.
I don't go, there's some stuff that will not be unlocked.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. The best stories have this wrestle. Man, look at Gerald, just the scene in Fences where Denzel doesn't let his son take the scholarship to college.
Yeah.
These Monica says this device or these devices are like crack it. I hope I can set boundaries to over here when the time comes. Okay, yeah, he's right. At first, I was thinking devices like
Yeah,
technology. But I get it. I get it. Yeah, yeah. These
yo,
particular propensities that we have that causes us to continue making certain decisions.
this question from Lana.
Mm,
I think as we transition to the end of this conversation for the afternoon, we thank you for hanging out with us.
yeah.
Um, we as sinful beings have a distorted definition of love. So how can one conclude what is required of them under the umbrella of love?
Mm,
And she referenced the first part of it, 1 Corinthians 13,
mhm, 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 mhm.
as what Paul says, and
Yeah,
wrestling with
yeah.
our messed up view
Mm,
of like
wow.
how do we navigate that? How do we navigate that?
Mm, mm,
I think one of the things that's helpful as we think about last night,
yeah.
the responses of Jesus
Mm,
to all of the faces shown to him
mhm.
are a demonstration of love.
Yeah, yeah.
Love sometimes looks like,
Yes.
I got to check you.
Mhm, mhm,
Love sometimes looks like,
mm.
I'm not even going to give you a response.
Wow. Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes love is answering a question with a question.
Mhm, mm.
Sometimes love is walking away.
So good. Yeah.
And I think what's dangerous is trying to prescribe, like, globally, because just as the will of God is different for all of us,
Yeah.
how God is calling us to exercise love. Like, we could have the same family dynamic.
Yeah.
Like, your family looks like X, Y, and Z, ABC. My family
Mhm.
looks like X, Y, Z, ABC. But
Yeah.
God could be calling you to do something totally different in the context of your family than He could be
Mm.
calling me to do in the context of my family.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so, yeah, I don't know, Chris, what you thinking?
Read me the question again. I wanna make sure that I'm understanding her because I don't know. I don't think I can see it on this end, right? I don't think it's gonna show up.
It cuts it off. I'll see
Does it?
it.
Oh, okay,
Uh
that's
huh.
why. Okay.
Um, but we as sinful beings, she goes through 1 Corinthians 13,
Mm,
pastes the whole chapter in there, and then she
mm,
says, "But we as sinful beings have a distorted definition of love.
mm,
So how
mm.
can one conclude what is required of them under the umbrella of love?"
Mm. Yeah. Um, a few weeks ago, we talked about the importance of faith. You know, it's one thing to believe that you're saved and then you keep messing up.
Yeah.
And then you question whether or not you are saved, or am I doing the right things because I'm saved, or is it because I want to stay saved, or what is my intention? I don't know, God, because it's so, I don't know. Romans 7, stuff I want to do.
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing with our understanding of what love is, because it's the work that he began, he's faithful to complete. Jesus talks about, I think it's in Mark, where he talks about, this is how growth and salvation works. There's a seed, and the seed turned into this little sprout, and the sprout then shoots up, and then when it shoots up, then there's the head, and then it's the full blade. So our understanding of love will continue to evolve as we are, John 15,
Yeah.
connected to Christ. Abide in me, and I will abide in you. I am the source which connects you to the Father. And so, even in this very moment, your understanding of love and my understanding of love and Lana's understanding of love may be three totally different understandings.
Mhm.
And that's okay. Saved, right? We're talking about in our saved minds, we now have chosen to have a salvific relationship with God. And he's now starting to do the work of helping us to understand what love looks, feels, tastes, smells, all of these sensory and mental understanding of what love is for each of us in our way. So my view is not going to be like your view. I think this is why Paul is saying, listen, there are those of y'all that can eat meat sacrificed to idols and it's nothing. But out of love, I'm not going to go to the movie theaters in my district, because if I go, somebody else is going to be somebody else is going to get it. I guess so the question is, it's not now. I hope this will kind of answer it for Lana and for those of us who are probably wondering the same thing. You have to believe that as a saved person, your perception and understanding of love will continue to evolve. I don't want to go negative and say it's flawed until Jesus comes, but it is. But it will continue to evolve until the hope is manifested in Christ actually coming. And then Paul's saying this is when the corrupt will put on incorruptibility, and now we see through a glass darkly. Like he says, there are things that we are trying to get, but we can't even fully grasp it. For those of us who think we fully understand a particular thing in scripture, I would beg to differ in that you just have begun to just scratch the surface of what this whole thing is really about. So, I would even consider, Jesus says it. He says, listen, so if those of you who are evil knows how to give good gifts
to your children,
so to an extent, you don't even have to be saved to know how to love properly. But you have to be saved to have the faith to know that he still loves you in your brokenness. That's where the faith comes in, right? The faith doesn't come in me just loving my son, even though I'm unholy or I'm unrighteous. It's now that I realize that I am, do I have enough faith to know that even in the love that was so incorrect at one point, flawed at one point, but I'm still trying to demonstrate that kind of love. You know how many people try to love? Like we talking about hurt folk in the church. I'm gonna wrap it up. Hurt folk in the church, especially them old folk. And the only way that they know how to love you is by telling you that your skirt's too short. To them, that's love. I'm looking out for you, sister. And to us, that's like, you don't even know me. How dare you talk about that? Two different perspectives. And when this is all said and done, Jesus is going to come and be like, well, you had a different perspective too than I did. Your perspective, youngin, wasn't even. So all of that to say, it is going to be messy. Our perceptions will differ, but it's the faith to know that we are still in the same boat, so to speak. And as long as we choose to try in our best capacity to understand 1 Corinthians 13, but even more so the love that Jesus demonstrated for us, not just on the cross, but getting up out of the grave, leaving out of love and choosing to come back out of love, that we can trust and believe that it's okay. As imperfect as it is, you have to have the faith, because if you don't, then your faith will not sustain even the love that you think Jesus needs to redeem you, because you don't believe that the love that you're demonstrating to somebody else is enough. So how can you believe that the Father can give you enough for you? And that's why I go back to the forgive and you will be forgiven, right? It's interconnected. If you can't learn how to release somebody else's offenses towards you, then you are not going to. And this is why I think it is. It's not because God is saying, well, if you don't, I won't. He's saying, if you don't, you can't believe that I will for you. I'll say it again. If you can't choose to love by forgiving somebody else, releasing them of their offense to you personally, then you are going to project that grudge to God holding a grudge against you. So he's saying, forgive and you will be forgiven. Because if you don't forgive, you are not going to have the faith to believe that I can forgive you. So I think that that's what it boils down to. It's really this faith piece, Lana, and the closer that I get to Christ as well, I realize that it's not about the works. That'll come as much as it is the belief that even if I didn't do the works, God still got me. Of course there's works, but you know what I'm trying to say? Like you need to have this whole faith, hope, love thing, man. This faith and hope thing is going to be real deep, especially coming towards the end of this thing. Because you will start asking yourself, am I really saved? Did I really do enough? And grace will say, it don't matter. I got you regardless, because where sin abounds, grace, I abound even more. And mercy says, It don't matter. I got you, because even though you messed up and you didn't realize you messed up, I got you covered.
I love it.
But we get to this point where we trying to parse out certain things, and we make it our responsibility to understand the book of life and the other book. I don't know what that's called. Is it book of death? I don't even know. And try to figure out like what's going to be in them books. That's not our job. That's not our goal. That is not our purpose of being here. Love Jesus. And in faith, you have to believe that the demonstration of the love that you have to yourself and to others, he will continue to evolve as you grow closer to him.
Yeah.
I hope that was enough.
Listen, I'm just gonna play this. You set this up too. You set this up too well for me not to play this. So I'm just gonna play this, and yeah, I'm just gonna play this.
What if I were alive with the most amazing stories ever heard? What if I was a bird, taking things that I didn't earn? What if I was a killer, thought nothing of taking another life? What if I was suicidal, and the only life I want to take is mine? Would he love me? And would he forgive me? Would he save me and dare to use me? What if I had a baby that I didn't allow to come into the world? And what if I'm confused about whether I'm a boy or a girl? What if I took a husband away from his wife and his child? What if I said before I didn't believe in God, and how would he love me? Will he forgive me? Will he save me? Oh, and dare to use me? Oh, I don't know whether it is, but it's one thing I sure of: the blood of Jesus can make anything of God. Yes, he loves you. Yes, he forgive you. Yes, he'll save you. He'll live in you. Oh, with unconditional love and forgive you. No matter what you've done, we will save you. Our God is mighty to save and use you. I'm a living witness, you will forgive you. And you will save you. What if I wasn't?
I don't know how the Spirit does it, man, but he always that's one of the things that validates whether or not we on target.
'Cause I never tell you the songs.
And then the song is just off. We know. But wow, it's powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful. Wow.
Like the answer to all the what ifs. Even when we were looking at last night and the different categories of people, you realize that the truth that is Jesus
Mm.
presented an opportunity for forgiveness for everyone.
Every single person.
And the grace of God for the next move, for the next decision, for the next phase of life, even if it's the back nine, the grace of God to provide perspective for that next thing, and grace and forgiveness for the last thing.
Yeah.
So, blessings on your week, everybody, as you start, as you make some decisions, as you ask some questions, as you figure out what does the demonstration of love look like for you and for your family, for those closest to you, and how do you live that out?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Is it just a Friday thing or Saturday thing too?
Oh, that's Saturday thing too.
So as you do it, I'm chucking up the deuces.
Yeah. So, in light of the next decision that you need to make, that you have been wrestling with and struggling with, the best thing to probably do right now, go play.